So while you're still thinking about that, maybe typing in your response, I'll just go over the agenda quickly for today. So as always, during these open office hour discussions, we will do some resource overview. We have our EV Smart website where there's a lot of helpful resources that are available to you that we've developed, that other organizations have developed that could be really useful to you, but sometimes if you don't know that it's there, you don't know to use it. And so we like to highlight the different resources that are available as you're going through these EV actions. And so today we have 3 different resources that we're going to touch on, and then followed up by an open discussion. And as always, when the discussion comes, please be ready to unmute. And as you're able to be on camera for the discussion is good as we make it. So we're really looking for participation here, but also a perfectly good option too is to put your comments or questions in the chat, and we'll make sure that those get vocalized as well. So multiple ways to participate. And then we'll just talk about what's coming up next. So without further ado, I see more tools coming in, so thank you for that. We have our resources overview. We're going to go over the communications guide, a website template guide, and the Drive Fleet tool. And so I will hand it over to Lindsay to go over the communications guide.
All right, good morning, everyone. So our first guide that we want to go through is a communications guide, and this is kind of not necessarily tied to a direct action or best practice in the system, but can be used throughout a couple different ones of them. So we'll just dive right in. We just have a couple slides, and I'll show you what it looks like on the inside as well. And you can advance the slide. So we're just going to be talking through what's on the green side, on the left side of all of these slides. The right side is just kind of, it shows you what the guide looks on the inside. No need to read through that. It just kind of gives you a sense of what the guide looks like. So in this guide, we are going to, it covers how to create a communications plan. It talks about different themes that you can use while talking about EVs through your communications channels. Then it talks about your communications channels in general. Those are, where does it make sense to have like kind of a long form story versus maybe like a short video? And that can be anywhere from like social media to your newsletter to an educational video. The next section of this guide will talk about different content ideas based on EV Smart. So I'm the one that wrote this guide, and this one was a lot of fun to kind of go through. I just basically thought of all the different ways that you could possibly talk about how you did your actions throughout the rest of the program, like the mayor cutting the ribbon on a new charger in town, and that's a post on your social feed, or something like that. So just kind of just inspiration and ideas, and obviously you'll be able to cater any of that to your own communications. Next in the guide, we talk about metrics and tracking. So just kind of like what kind of story are you going to be able to look back and see how your communication affected your community? And then last, we have just a page of EV resources. These are mostly outside resources. A couple of them have been written by Drive Electric Minnesota or GPI, but it's just kind of some articles across the internet where you can go and learn more facts as you're trying to craft these messages, if you want to kind of lean more towards the educational side of messaging surrounding EVs. And next slide, please. The next piece is just how and when to use it. This guide really, you don't have to read it top to bottom. you can take the section that you need in that moment and use it. For that reason, I think it's really good to take a look at during any point of any kind of communications that you're doing about EVs. It can help you, be inspired to, come up with your own content. You can, look through those resources to see what feels like sharing to your community. And so really, it helps you when you're planning, it helps you when you're creating the content, and it can also help you, after it's posted or shared or mailed, and you can track those metrics. You can use this. One thing that I think is really nice about this guide is you all are our target audience for these guides, right? And I know that all communities, all municipalities have different kind of staffing situations. So maybe some of you are handling the EV Smart program and other sustainability programs in addition to some communications work, but perhaps you have a completely different colleague that handles communications work that doesn't really know much about EVs. This guide can kind of help you on either side of that spectrum, where it could teach you how to think about a communications plan, but it also could teach you about EVs to put into your existing communications plan. And yeah, so those are the different ways that you can use this guide. And next slide, please. And kind of, as I just mentioned before, it's good for kind of staff unfamiliar with communications and staff unfamiliar with EVs, or anybody in between. It's if you are kind of sitting at the drawing board and you're like, okay, we need to talk to our residents about, different rate structures for charging at home, then you can kind of think, okay, what's the best way to talk to them about it? Do we want to put something in the newsletter? Is that specific enough to them? So this can kind of, as you go through this communications guide, it's something that you can find little inspirations, little different ways of wording things, ideas of where to put things throughout the course of it. What's really nice about this too is, as I kind of mentioned right at the beginning, is it can be referenced as you're working on so many different actions. We don't have an action, say, create a social media plan about EVs, because that's not, that's too specific for what this program is. It's really a choose your own adventure program, as you know by now. So this is kind of really choose your own adventure guide. You can use it as you're working on your educational videos that will get you points. You can use it as you're writing your pamphlets that will get you points, and anything in between as well. And that is my quick overview of the communications guide. I will drop that guide in the chat. And as always, you can always find it on the EV Smart website. And I will pass this back to Rebecca to talk about the website guide.
Thank you, Lindsay. That was great. So for the website template guide, some of the actions that are part of this EV Smart program involve sharing information with your residents, local business owners, and commercial property owners about EV information, as well as we do have a whole best practice and actions surrounding developing kind of sort of a landing page on your municipal website that hosts information about EVs. And that information could be basic info about electric vehicles. It could be about the programs, rebates, and incentives that are available for your community, and even like what your community is doing to accelerate EVs and how that relates to your community goals. And so having this information that is easily accessible for your residents really will help accelerate EV adoption at the local level. And so we created this guide to make it as easy as possible for you to add that information onto your website. So this guide has different sections, and the 3 sections are developing EV website content, example websites, real life example websites that you can look at for ideas, as well as various types of templates that you can use when you're creating your own website. So as far as developing the website content, this section really asks you to walk you through all the different considerations that as you're building out the information. So it's asking you to consider the audience that you want to target, the amount of information that you might want to have on your website. So for example, some communities really prefer to have like all the information written out on their website, whereas others prefer to maybe provide more links to other websites that can provide the same information. And so asking you to consider, maybe you want one end of the spectrum or the other, or maybe a happy medium. And it also asks you to consider where on your existing website you would like to put that EV information. So we're not asking you to create a whole new website. It's just adding information to one that you already have. And then additionally, this guide has best practices for all these different considerations written in there and discussed within the guide. For the example websites, we have links to city websites from across the country showing examples of how other communities have included this information into their websites. And oftentimes it's really helpful as you're thinking about what you want your website to look like, to see how others do it and maybe compare and see what you like, what you don't like. So that can help you evaluate how you want your own page to look. And we do even have examples from right here in Minnesota, especially highlighting Roseville's page since they are an EV Smart participant. And I believe even used this guide to craft their own website. So take a look at Roseville's for a good example of an EV website page. And then finally, I think the meat of this guide is the different types of website templates that we have available. So the first two, I guess, types of templates are just they're general templates that can be used by any city in any state across the country. But there's two different versions of this template. There's the condensed version and the expanded version. And the condensed version provides that very brief overview of EVs and really focuses mainly on providing a select few links that will provide additional information to your residents, whereas the expanded version really provides kind of those longer text passages and some links that you can just copy and paste and use directly onto your website. But then, as I mentioned, those are just kind of general templates that can be used by anyone, but we do have a Minnesota specific section that provides links that are specific to here in Minnesota. Like, for example, it will link to the Drive Electric website or to your different electric utility rebates and programs across the state. So that information has already been developed and you can just copy and paste it. And so you can just choose the links that are and the text that is applicable to your community as you're going through this. So those are kind of an overview of the different sections. And now when we're diving into exactly like how we should use this, it can be used for creating a whole new section about EVs on your website, or maybe you're looking at updating some information that you already have. This can give you ideas, wording, and whatnot for making those changes. And to use it, as I've mentioned, you can feel free to copy and paste the information provided, but I don't want you to feel obligated to use any portion that may not resonate with your community. So if there's a section that doesn't feel quite right, you can edit it, you can delete it, Maybe there's something missing that you want to add. This is a template that you can use, but change and customize as is needed. So just keep that in mind. We've had other cities that have used this and they've emailed me about, hey, we don't like this part. Is it okay if we don't put it in? And the answer is always yes. You don't need to check with me, as long as the information that you're adding or changing it to is correct and updated information, then it's fine to put in. So how to use this is that the template has, when you're copying and pasting, the template has bolded letters and highlighting that's demonstrated to the right here that indicate areas that do need to be customized by your community. So just keep that in mind. You can't just do a all-out copy and paste. There is a little bit of customization that needs to be done in addition to anything else, any other changes that you would like to make. For key takeaways about this guide, as I've mentioned many times already, but I will continue to mention it, this is really meant to make it as easy as possible for your community to add information about EVs to your website, but it can be customized to what fits your community best and what fits your existing web page best. And by completing this task of putting information about EVs and different rebates and whatnot on your website, and depending what information you put on, you can complete quite a few of our EV Smart actions and gain points towards certification. So if you have any questions, or if you would like us to review your what you are putting out on your website before it gets published, just to see, is this meeting the different actions that I think it is, Lindsay and I are more than happy to look that over for you. So send it our way. And in addition, this is a guide, kind of like Lindsay touched on. Maybe some of you will be developing your own web pages, and this can really help you with that, but maybe you're passing it on to some other staff within your city that it is in charge of the web page. So this can be helpful to both parties as well. So let us know if you have any questions. Lindsay will put a link to this guide, the website template guide, in the chat. And as always, it can be found on the EV Smart website. So that is a brief overview of the website template guide. And I do also want to touch on, it's called the Dashboard for Rapid Vehicle Electrification. And I think the acronym for it's missing an I, but I think it's essentially DRIVE. So we might be calling it that for shorthand. Dashboard for Rapid Vehicle Electrification is a bit of a mouthful. I do want to say that these other guides were developed by GPI. However, this DRIVE tool was developed by the Electrification Coalition. So we do have it linked on our website, but I do just want to note that it is developed by a different entity, and give them the credit where credit is due, because it's a great resource. So last month we did our webinar was focused on electrifying your fleets and doing a fleet analysis. And today we really want to highlight this tool because it can help you do sort of a DIY, if you will, fleet analysis. And why we really want to highlight this tool is because we recognize that doing a full fleet analysis performed by an outside entity isn't always the most feasible option, or isn't always supported by key decision makers in your communities. So this is a less expensive in-house option that can help you evaluate your fleet as you're considering electrification. As I mentioned, this is a tool from the Electrification Coalition. It can be found on their website, which we have linked in these slides, but it is also linked on our EV Smart website. But they describe it as a total cost of ownership tool that allows users to upload simple fleet data into an easy to use Excel-based tool, and then it will help you analyze and assess best fit for EV deployment. And to use it, we have a link that you can follow here. Lindsay will also put that link in the chat. And as I've said a couple times now, it is on our EV Smart website. And once that link will direct you to the Electrification Coalition's website. And once you're at that website, it'll provide a spot where you can download the spreadsheet. And to use the spreadsheet properly, there might be a couple steps that you have to take to make sure that it's functional. And we want to just highlight it so that you don't download it and think, oh no, this doesn't work. There might be a couple steps that you need to do. For example, it does use macros. And so if macros are blocked, you would need to make sure that they are unblocked within your system. And we have a linked guide that can help walk you through how to do that unblocking, as well as sometimes off the right here, we do have a picture of what this might look like initially. Sometimes there's a yellow security bar that shows up at the top, and it says that the content is disabled. And so you would just need to click on, there's a little white button off to the right there that says enable content. You would need to select that to be able to use this tool. So keep that in mind. But once you have that all figured out, you will need each of your fleet vehicles, vehicle identification numbers, the VINs, to get the analysis started, as well as there's some other simple information that they'll ask for, such as the expected years of use of each vehicle and the annual vehicle miles traveled. And so you can input that directly. Also, they have kind of like a set median number that you can use if you're not sure, but any customization that you can add and details about the specific vehicles that you can add will obviously make it more accurate for your community. So we do have this resource, as I mentioned, linked in various places. It'll go out in our follow-up email. So if you're wanting to do a fleet analysis, but you don't have the funds or maybe the support to do a full-blown analysis, this is really a great option to help in your decision-making process of which vehicles to electrify. And it can even be used to help gain that key decision maker support for electrification, because you'll be able to show the impacts that it can have, electrification can have on your specific fleet vehicles. So it can kind of be a twofold tool in that regard. And that is the end of our resource overview, I guess, and we will move on to the questions and the open discussion. I do want to say with any of these, if you're going through these guides, if you're using these tools and you have questions or need support, don't hesitate to reach out to either myself or Lindsay. And without further ado, I will pass it back to Lindsay for our discussion.
All right, thank you. Actually, can I have you stop sharing your screen and we can kind of get into like Brady Bunch mode here and see each other's faces? So I think that it's great to have this kind of peer conversation, and we're happy to answer any questions about any of the guides we just walked you through, or if you have any other kind of questions for your peers or for us about the program. I'll let everyone just kind of sit on that for a minute, see if they have anything that pops up, and then feel free to just unmute and speak or put something in the chat, whatever you're most comfortable with.
One thing I was curious about, because we're working on this too, is if anybody is putting together a checklist for residents and businesses wanting to put in or specifically for residential EV chargers, if anyone has a checklist that they're working on right now.
Noel, can I ask a follow-up question? So you're doing a checklist for like what they would need to do in your community?
Yeah, for like inspections and permits and that kind of thing, what they would need to do. And as far as like, I'm also including, make sure that you have enough service at your house and that kind of thing too.
Yeah, in St. Louis Park, we haven't put together an official checklist, but I really like that idea. I think I've been thinking about including that in all of our communication about electric vehicles, especially thinking about the panel and the IRA incentives available. So yeah, just to say, I really like that idea, and I think we could use something like that.
Yeah, I've been working with our community development department on that because they do all the permitting and stuff. And so I think we have a mock-up ready for commercial installation, but we're still working on the residential. So happy to share when those are ready to go.
I will say that so one of the actions within EV Smart that actually maybe everybody might eventually start working on is a EVSE electric vehicle supply equipment permitting checklist. So we are actually working on developing a template right now, and we'll have that ready to go in the next couple months and have a really nice informative webinar kind of really going over it and how to use it and implement it. It's going to be kind of more of the template variety, so very similar to the website guide that we just went through. So if anybody has anything that they really think should be on like a general template for everyone, please let me know, and we'll see if that kind of feels like it fits all communities. Does anybody have any specific questions about the communications guide, the website guide, or that the Drive tool? Looks like John just asked if we'll send that out, and yep, we'll send out this slide deck and make sure everybody has access to that. The link in the chat that I put a couple links ago is for Electrification Coalition. That will actually get you to that page to download that tool. All right, I think something that I've been just curious as we're kind of making our way through this program, if anybody feels comfortable sharing, I'm just curious what actions have been easy so far, what actions have been difficult, in any kind of insight on what's it like going through this program to this point.
I would say, and I did this before the EV Smart program started, but I think putting the website together was a pretty easy task. And especially with the help that GPI offered in previous webinars and stuff, that definitely helped wrap my brain around what I wanted to include and what I wanted to put on there. So that was a pretty easy lift for me. And it's nice to be able to point people in that direction if they've got questions.
Another kind of thing, kind of more on the side of just kind of the communications. What type of questions are your community members asking about EVs right now? I know that, it's been a journey of how everybody feels about it, us included, as a group, but what are community members curious about learning right now?
I'm hearing a lot of, understandably so, because I also am easily confused and overwhelmed by what actually counts to get the rebates, both from the state and federal rebates, and like what vehicles are actually eligible, because it can't really be boiled down to like a simple communications point. So I've heard some questions about that.
And just a follow-up question to that, is it community members that are like, they're going to buy a car and they're just trying to figure out how, or an EV, and they're trying to figure out how that works, or like what level of the process of like adopting an EV would you say that those questions are coming from?
That's a good question. I think initially they're pretty early on. So like people who haven't even really started doing much of their own research, but they're kind of like, oh, I heard this new thing is available. But then I got confused and I'm like, yeah, I feel you there. So I think it's a lot of people who are just starting to scratch the surface, but maybe feeling a little overwhelmed by navigating.
Yeah, in the past, I know Excel had a nice kind of rebate tool on their website, but it hasn't really been updated since the latest Inflation Reduction Act changes with, requiring vehicles to be made here or there and that kind of thing. So that's kind of confusing for me as well, trying to figure out what the most up-to-date information is. And there's also loopholes now. If you lease some vehicles, they'll actually be eligible for more rebates than if you buy it outright. So there's a lot to wade through right now.
That's so true, Noah. Maybe Lindsay, let's make a note to find a good resource that we can send to you, as I think CERTS has one. But we can find a good tool to send to you for that.
I actually just read an NPR article. I'm pretty sure it was from NPR. Just kind of, it really just broke down like, these are the ones that will get you 3,700. These are the ones that will get you 750, and that are currently available for sale or will be shortly. It was just really quick and easy to understand. I'm gonna see if I can find that article, because when I was diving through some research the other day, I found that. So, and in the chat, it looks like we're Tim Pratt from Brooklyn Park has said that he can share a case study talking about a charging station installation contractor. I'm thinking this is for one at your home, Tim. And that it just, he was really wonderful to work with, and got him some information in Excel's off-peak charging program and so on. So yeah, if you want to share that with us, we would love to see. Any information will make us better at talking about this stuff with our community members. Also,
I wrote it in the chat, so.
I didn't quite catch what you said, Tim. I'm so sorry, but I think you said that it's just written out in the chat.
But I didn't want to ramble on and on and on, so I just figured I'd write it out and put it in the chat.
Sure. Thank you. Also, looks like there is a ride and drive happening in August, so that's exciting. Anybody else have any coming events or EV things that they're starting to work on that are exciting to them?
I will say, this is Allie from Inver Grove Heights. Sorry, I don't have my camera accessible. Just going back to your initial point about like questions that our community members are having, I'm still struggling with a lot of, concerns and skepticism over the transition to electric vehicles. I know our commissioners, like some of them are supportive and some of them just still have a lot of questions regarding like longevity of vehicle batteries and winterization, just how they last long term in the winter. And then we're consistently getting that, concern about the environmental impact of the battery versus the gas powered vehicle, just the standard concerns. And it just got me thinking, if in terms of like the toolkits, if you could share, a resource that I know that at one point we had like a myths document, like myths busted document of sorts. If you could share those, I think that would be helpful, because we're still trying to kind of pass that information along. And I think sometimes it's challenging you know, trying to find the correct source of that myth buster. You know, I prefer if it's coming from kind of like a government agency or source, like actual data, you know, behind it. I think that's what our council and our commissioners like to see, and as well as our, you know, community just on social media. So if you have any, you know, like data facts that can back up some of this information, I still think that's helpful. I constantly feel like I'm having to share it, but yeah, so just wanted to share that. So thanks.
That's a great suggestion. Thank you. I did recently get an extreme weather kind of one pager from Highland Fleets. They do electric buses. I can share that out if anybody's kind of interested in kind of the weather side of those kind of concerns. So I could share that when we're done talking, but yeah, I think that's a great idea, just to keep a very updated kind of myths and how to address them and everything like that. So I got that written down.
Thanks.
Lindsay, yeah, this is Don Lorsong up at the city of Dilworth, and you know how cold it gets up here in the winter time, and that's a huge question. So any information that could be sent on that would be appreciated.
Yeah, absolutely. I will say I did just pull up this PDF I got from them a while ago, and it is very focused on electric buses. So I can still share it, but it is very centered on electric buses.
One
It
more
looks like
thing-
there's, oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say one more thing. I think we're kind of struggling with currently in St. Louis Park, and this is part of our kind of commitment letter goals for the program too, is to build on utility charging programs. But there's just so many unknowns right now. I still believe with Excel's charging programs, and I believe like now they're communicating that all of their pilot programs are at capacity, or at least the multifamily charging pilot program, which I was really excited to get out to our multifamily. So yeah, thanks to all. Yeah, so I think just we could kind of make our own incentives, but hoping to, of course, build on what Excel's doing, but now that's kind of on pause. So yeah, just trying to figure out where to go from here.
So are you looking for like steps to like working with the utility to enhance their programs, or kind of stand up your own that work in conjunction with their programs, or
Yeah,
maybe both?
yeah, we were hoping to do the second one. So like for the multifamily Excel pilot program, we were hoping to basically add like one more level of like incentive. So I learned from some Excel folks at a workshop last year that they had basically no pilot program enrollment for unassigned parking spaces. So most of the people in the multifamily pilot program were like condos and like pretty nice luxury apartments with like underground heated parking. And here in St. Louis Park, we do have some of those. We actually have a lot of like older, like 1960s, 70s apartments with just like surface lots. So we wanted to have another incentive and a bunch of outreach for those apartment buildings. And so we were offering to like pay for part of the charger if they were in Excel's program, and like provide our own assistance and anything else we could do to like sweeten the deal. But now we can't send them to the pilot program because it's full and unclear if it'll be open again. So yeah.
All right, well, that sounds like a great idea. And if we have any contacts at Excel, maybe we can poke them on that a little bit. But yeah, thanks for sharing what you're working on with that.
Also, I would suggest, if you haven't already, just reach out to Excel, and we can, if you don't already have a contact, we can provide that to you. Just letting them know that this is what we're thinking of doing, and telling them that you have interest in those programs, because since it is kind of in this pilot stage, showing that there's interest, showing that there's even more interest than what they already have could help them in their decision-making process of what's happening with the future of this program. And so if we all are reaching out, hopefully they get the message that we like these and they should stick around and you should open them up for more spots.
Looks like a couple different communities will be hosting ride and drives or EV events in the next couple months. So that's really exciting to hear. And if you want me to get that on our website calendar so everybody could just kind of keep that date in mind and visit along with it, let me know. A couple folks have been sending me events that they want all of us to come to, and I'm happy to broadcast that information to our group. So if that's the case, if you want your fellow city staff folks to come along, please let me know and I'll get the word out as usual.
Yeah, Lindsay, feel free to share the Brooklyn Park information.
Yeah, awesome, I will.
Are there other comments, questions, concerns, things you want to bring up with us? Otherwise, Lindsay, I might share my screen so we can talk briefly on the next steps. But I do always want to say over and over that we are here, the GPI team is here for you as you're working through various actions. We can help troubleshoot, we can provide guidance, we can review documents, provide insight, any sort of thing like that. So if you're come up against something and you're not sure where to go next, or would just like a second pair of eyes on it, please reach out to us. We're here to support you, to help you. And that can be through email, it can be over the phone, or if you want a Zoom call or something, we can provide any sort of assistance in that way. I'll just share my screen here really quickly. For next steps, we will be sending out a follow-up email that has all of these links that we talked about today. Also, everything will be the recording to this, the slide deck and whatnot will be loaded onto the EV Smart website. And our next webinar will be at the end of August, Wednesday, August 30th at the same time, 9 to 10. And we will be discussing ordinances, zoning ordinances as it relates to charging infrastructure. So keep an eye out for that. And we will also get to work on all these different suggestions that we had today about different resources that would be helpful to our communities. And we'll send those out to you when we have them. And so if no one has any other thoughts, concerns, questions, we can feel free to adjourn early. We don't need to hold you here. People enjoy having a couple minutes back of their day, but we appreciate you all for coming. And I will say again, don't hesitate to reach out to us if you have any questions or need support from us. But with that, have a great Wednesday.